Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, fundamental paradigm shift between how the East and the West view reality itself. Have you ever wondered why different cultures interact with nature, science, and even each other in such drastically different ways? Well, we're unpacking some incredible source material that traces this all the way back to how these cultures define the universe. It's an absolutely fascinating journey, so let's just jump right in. To keep us perfectly focused on this abstract journey, here's our cognitive map for today. We'll hit 1. Two worldviews of heaven. 2. The three talents. 3. Attribute versus substance. 4. Unity versus opposition. And finally, 5. Modern significance. But before we really get going, I want you to ask yourself this fundamental question. Do you view humanity as a woven, inseparable part of nature's fabric, or as an independent entity totally distinct from it? Be honest, your answer actually reveals exactly which side of today's philosophical divide you instinctively lean towards. Keep that in the back of your mind as we go. Section 1. Two worldviews of heaven and God. Let's kick things off with a concept of the divine. Traditionally, the West views the divine as a singular, absolute God, but the East, they view it as a much more complex, dual-layered system. First up, we have Sanjay. This represents the ultimate source that created everything. In Donghak thought, this is sometimes referred to as the heavenly Lord. It's the heaven outside the sky, the unmanifested, limitless origin point of literally all existence. It's the grand architect. But it definitely doesn't stop there. Unlike the West, which historically emphasized one absolute God micromanaging every detail of existence, the East pairs Sanjay with Shinmyang. Basically, the universe is filled with these operative entities. And no, these aren't angels. They're active, localized forces moving within specific territories according to the strict laws of yin-yang and the 5 phases. It's a pluralistic, delegated universe where highest heaven doesn't interfere with the day-to-day operations of natural laws. Moving right along to Section 2, the 3 talents, that is, heaven, earth, and humanity. So this pluralistic view creates what is known as the 3 talents, which is the basic Eastern system explaining the relationship between heaven, earth, and humanity. The source material defines 3 completely distinct forces at play here. First, heaven expands and assimilates, integrating heterogeneous elements into one vast order. Then, earth condenses and solidifies, compressing those elements into tangible forms. And humanity? Well, we act as the harmonious convergence right in the middle. We're the place where opposing beings meet as equals. In this framework, humanity is literally the balancing act of the universe. You'll actually see this assimilative nature woven through all the major Eastern schools of thought. The source text beautifully describes this as an almost fairy tale-like view of heaven, meaning it's all about integrating different parts into a beautiful, unified whole. For Taoism, the ultimate goal is assimilation into nature. For Confucianism, it's assimilation into the inner self and morality. And for Buddhism, it's assimilation into cosmic law. The overarching theme is always, always integration, never isolation. All right, Section 3, attribute-centered versus substance-centered thinking. So how do these different end goals completely alter how we actually measure reality? Well, Western thought is fundamentally ontological. It focuses heavily on physical substance, matter, and the separation of things. It asks, what is this object made of? It breaks things down to understand them. Eastern thought, on the other hand, is generative. It's attribute-centered and focuses on correlational reasoning. It asks, how does this object relate to everything else around it? It's not about the isolated entity itself, but the entire web of relationships and how things harmonize. The source text gives us a truly great analogy for this. If the heavenly stems and earthly branches are like the atoms of physics, the cyclical phases of life are the molecules, combining to create entirely new harmonic properties. The East doesn't look at just the atom. It looks at the energy created when those atoms interact. It's a massive shift in perspective, from analyzing just the part to analyzing the whole shebang. Which brings us to the core clash in Section 4, unity versus opposition. How do all these building blocks we've talked about culminate in a real ideological clash? Let's break it down. When looking at heaven, the East sees the assimilation of all things into one, while the West sees it through Aristotle's lens of distinct, separate form. For Earth, the East sees a condensation of opposing forces, while the West sees raw material and matter meant to be used. And crucially, this is the big one, regarding humanity, the East sees us as a convergence, the harmony of opposites. The West sees individual entity growth. This right here is the ultimate contrast of our explainer. It's the concrete difference between 2 fundamental worldviews. The East seeks the unity of heaven and humanity.
This is a state where humans don't just live in nature, they literally are nature. It's a paradigm of total integration and harmony. The West, however, relies on the opposition of heaven and humanity. Under this model, humanity achieves its individual growth by standing apart from nature as a completely distinct entity. To develop, humanity has to separate from, analyze, and ultimately conquer the natural world. So, unity embraces the universe as self, opposition treats the universe as the other, to be mastered.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Modern Significance. So why does any of this ancient philosophy matter to us today? Well, look at the world around us. Our modern global society is heavily built on that Western mechanical worldview of separation. And hey, while it's given us incredible technological advancements, viewing the world as a machine made of distinct, separate parts often leads to profound alienation. It leads to a mindset of domination over nature rather than coexisting with it. We are seeing the limits of this opposition framework in real time right now with our global environmental and social crises. But the source analysis points out something incredibly hopeful here. Rediscovering this Eastern paradigm of the unity of heaven and humanity offers a really powerful alternative lens. It presents an organic view of nature and a philosophy of reconciliation that, frankly, we desperately need right now. It teaches us how to shift our energy from breaking things apart to bringing things back together. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on as you navigate the modern world. Will we continue to view our world as a machine of separate parts to conquer, or as a living harmony that we must actively assimilate into? Ultimately, in your own life and your own actions, are you living in opposition or in unity? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating material with me today. Catch you next time.